Hi, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Numbers. This is the show where we dig deeper to understand what really matters most in business. My name is Dave Bookbinder. I'm known as a business valuation expert and best-selling author, and I thank you for joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to create authority, and I've got an expert here who's a filmmaker, a journalist. She's a ghostwriter and an educator who uses writing to elevate traditionally unheard stories. She's also the author of the book, The Surrogate Author, The Craft, Business, and Ethics of Ghostwriting in the Age of AI. I'm pleased to welcome Autumn Karen. Welcome to Behind the Numbers, Autumn.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave. It is fantastic to see you.
It's my pleasure. Glad to have you on board. I gave the audience a little bit of a flavor about who you are, but why don't you tell them the rest of the story?
So, I have been a professional writer for many years, and what I always tell people is that I did not come to writing through passion. I came to writing through practicality. I was a public school teacher who had a master's degree in education and started writing lesson plans online to help supplement my income because I had 4 kids and they got to eat. And then that snowballed into blogs to go with the lesson plans, to ebooks, to books. I worked for a vanity press for several years, wrote, I think in the 3 years that I worked for them, I wrote like 8 books. So really learning to churn out content at a high quality, but it was really always about the paycheck for me. And that ended up circling back around to my getting invited to develop a course on ghostwriting. After the dean of that college heard me on NPR, he was like, would you come develop a course? So I came to develop that course, and then that kind of launched me back into academia. And then I went back and got my MFA in screenwriting from School of the Arts because after writing, I think at the time that I entered my MFA, I had written 24 books for clients. I really wanted to write for me. And I had never taken a writing class. So I was self-taught. I had an undergraduate degree and a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, but none of them in writing. And so I wanted to go back and do that. And also breaking into the film industry from North Carolina. It's not like I could just go like do something down here. So that allowed me to get a terminal degree and tap into the film industry. And so now I kind of straddle both of those worlds. I work in film and I work on books, and then I also teach. So there you go.
That is a great backstory. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. We talk a lot about storytelling on this program, and folks hear it all the time, especially in the context of marketing and creating brand awareness and authenticity and all those things. What does storytelling mean to you, especially in today's world that's saturated with content?
So I know that the word authenticity is overused, but I think what people are really getting at there is vulnerability. And just like you said, thank you for sharing that story. I really believe that exchange of vulnerable storytelling is what makes us all not AI, right? And so I talk about this in my book a lot about how that authentic storytelling that's not like authentic in the corporate sense, but authentic in the sense of vulnerability. I am a human and I have a human story that is not perfect, and I want to share it with you. And then that allows you to be vulnerable and it becomes this exchange. So we think of storytelling as one-sided, but I really see the relationship between like the viewer in the film world or the reader, or even when we're talking about content, right? I'm a content creator as well. I do all that on Instagram and TikTok. You're talking about an exchange between the person consuming the content, consuming the story, and the person telling it. And that back and forth, I think, is something that we don't talk about enough. And that's where the good stuff is in storytelling.
Yep, I totally agree with you. There's that subtle distinction, as you put it, between authenticity and vulnerability. And that's what keeps us real and keeps us human. And that's our secret sauce differentiator from the world of AI. So good stuff. Karen, excuse me. Yeah, on your website says that words are power. How does that belief guide your work?
So words are communication. And even as I am an English professor, right, I don't teach grammar in the strict senses because, again, grammar and language is driven by humanity, right? It's not driven by a book. There is no authority on what words mean. We have like Merriam-Webster, but even if you are familiar with Merriam-Webster and these authorities, they're constantly changing, right? They're adding new words to the dictionary. This has always been the case. So I really believe that words are powerful because they are an expression of the human experience. And it's like, how do I get the ideas that are in my head to you? And this is how humans do it. And sometimes, in film, we have all kinds of other things besides words. But at the end of the day, all of what you do in film is still driven by words, right? I still have to be a screenwriter who communicates a vision through a script, and then a director is going to tell the people on set how to do it through words. So the words are still like the central, powerful part of it, no matter what we're doing. And obviously we're on a podcast, so there's lots of words going on here. But that's really like the heart of it. Words are our most basic form of human communication. And yes, we have like people talk about signs and how you dress and all those other things. But we're communicating intellectual ideas through words. So there you go.
Words matter. An old mentor of mine about 100 years ago sat myself and a group of the young professionals who just joined the firm down in a conference room and emphasized the importance of thoughtful care in choosing words, whether it's a written document that's going to go to an investor or even just a communication by email to either client or internal. The words matter, and there is power there. I want to talk a little bit about the ghostwriting and the collaboration that's required there. I know some folks who have had their books ghostwritten, and there's an element of, I'll call it empathy and trust that has to come along with that. So I wanted to ask you maybe to touch on that. And also, how do you capture somebody else's voice, right, authentically, while still bringing your own secret sauce to that process?
So I'll actually start with, well, first of all, I think they're all kind of connected, right? So in my book, I have chapters on empathy and trust and building rapport. This is not, they're not isolated processes. And really where I come at, like writing as a ghostwriter, is through the concepts of method acting. So in my high school and early college years, I fancied that I was going to go be an actress on Broadway. Like that was the thing. I started my college career in theater. And so I really find myself stepping into people like I would step into a character. And so that's how I view that. And method acting has a lot of baggage. People talk about the extremes of it and people being jerks on set, all that. But at its core, it's really about empathy, right? You are learning so much about another person that you can imagine what their life would be and what their reactions would be. And then it's not about just cataloging experiences. So when I work with clients, I don't really just think about like boom, 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 these are the things that happen. I want that interiority. So in writing, we have scenes and narrative and interiority, and there's three different things. So if you like analyze a page of a book, you will find all three of these things. You'll find scenes and narrative and interiority. And I think about that interiority as an extension of that scene work, right? So something happens in your life and then you think about it, like you analyze it. That's what we all do. And so I want to bring that to clients, and really through method acting, it's an extension of that empathy of I am not just recounting what they experienced, but helping them to process it to a degree. So I do have PhD work in clinical psych. And so there's a piece of that like therapeutic thing that I find in ghostwriting of not just cataloging the events, but helping them to process that. And so I very much see my responsibility in shaping their stories as editing almost. It's as much about like what we choose to leave in and what we choose to leave out. And that's really where I see what I do. My first thing with clients is always to sit down and say, what is your ideal reader? Who do you imagine reading this book? Because that's going to shape how we edit it. What do we put into it? Because not everything is for everyone. And realistically, marketing a book, you can't market a book to everyone. That is not good. You have to niche down. So I think about that. And then I am 100% guiding clients in that direction as we're like editing what goes in and what comes out. More than anything else, that is how I shape the process.
It's funny you talk about marketing a book as an independent author. I can tell you it's for me anyway, and others I've known in the space, it's really, really hard to market a book, period. Mine were written as passion projects. People ask me, would you write a book today? I'd say, no way, it's way too much work. For me, it was about getting a message out to the world, which is still gratifying. I love giving them away more than I sell them. So that's all good for me. But what in your collabs with your clients, were there any big surprises that you picked up along the way? Anything that you learned from them that you weren't expecting?
I mean, there are always things that I learn from every client, and I am fortunate to be at a place in my career where I can be selective. I've written for lots of books for people who I wouldn't collaborate with again. And that's because their life stories were too intense, or they had fundamental beliefs that I just don't want to live in, you know? So some of it is you get in that method acting. It's like, do you want to live with this person for a year? Like, is that you, do you want to do that in your mind? And some of them, yes, like absolutely. There are folks who most clients, I'd be like, yes, let's go. But there are plenty who I am like, absolutely not. I had one client, his name was James Hurt Stern. He was a Black preacher who took over the KKK from a prison cell. And I worked with him for actually not very long. We turned around his book in like 6 months because there was a previous writer who could not finish it. So I came in and took it over, rewrote it. And then he was a mentor. He became very much a mentor for me through like difficulties in my own life. He ended up passing away from bladder cancer in 2018 and 2019. He passed away in 2019. And it was difficult because at that point I would consider him a friend and certainly a mentor. And I mean, he was a pastor, so he had that thing about him. And I very much learned how to not be afraid to speak from him. He was an activist, and so that was such a beautiful thing. He was fearless. He worked with white supremacists and was unafraid like through this experience that he had in prison and being beaten. He was empathetic always. So the way that he struck up the relationship with Edgar Ray Killen was through empathy for this man, and empathy regardless of his background, of the horrible things he had done. And yeah, I learned so much from James. There are many clients I've learned so much from, but when he comes to mind.
Yeah, good stuff. We talked about the vulnerability and the ability to maintain that human element. Is AI creeping into the work you're doing these days?
AI is definitely in the work. I have had a client. I had a potential client who found me on LinkedIn, which is where a lot of people find me, and so I get meetings regularly off of that. And he was interested in me writing his book until he heard the price tag, because I am, 400 hours into a book is not free. And he was like, well, can't I just let AI do it? And I was like, well, he actually started with, I want to use AI to do the cover. And I was like, well, you can do that. Like, that's totally your purview. But you should know that all the research we have shows that AI generated art on book covers turns people off. Like, we see this again and again, that AI generated images just make people not interested. And so because the book cover is such a central part of the marketing, I'm like, you're better to pay an artist, to pay a designer. It's not that much money in the scope of how much a book is going to cost to pay somebody to do you a good cover. You don't need AI. And then he went down the rabbit hole of, as I was describing my services and my process, he was like, oh, well, I think I could just have AI do that. And I'm like, sure, man. Like, you are welcome to. I have messed around with AI. I use AI for I use it to format my lesson plans, right? Like, so that they're standardized. Like, I use it when I'm taking meeting notes. Like, there are lots of places. I use the AI Copilot to write emails. Like, what I think that there's real possibilities there. But can it write a book? I don't think we're even close. Ben Affleck said this in a recent interview on Joe Rogan. He said that it's nowhere close. The promises that Sam Altman has made about AI have just not come to fruition. So, no, I don't think so. I don't find it to be a threat to me. And honestly, like, the guy who's going to use AI to write and I've had many clients who've used AI, especially in blog work. More power to you. Like, go and do it. I'm not concerned about it for me. But it does infringe. And I will say the pipeline for writers, because I teach professional writing, that I came up with through blogs, that does not exist. And so part of my mentorship of young writers is helping them find ways in, because the pipeline that I came through is completely gone.
Yeah, that's a great segue. Let's talk about the mentorship with the students of yours. So you teach writing at High Point University, so you've been deeply involved in education. For the students out there who are listening, what's the one thing you wish they would all understand about writing before they graduate?
I wish they would understand that your audience is either one professor, right? Or sometimes like just your classmates. The stakes are lower than you think. Just put it on the page. That is what I wish they understood. Is to let go of the fear and the self-doubt which is scary. I teach a book called Fearless Writing by Bill Kenauer in all of my freshman writing classes. And it's all about self-acceptance. And I talk about self-acceptance a lot in my own book. That's what it is. I mean, it's just radical self-acceptance. And so it doesn't matter. Like it actually doesn't matter. There you go. That's what I tell them.
Wonderful. Can we talk a little bit about film and media?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have an award-winning short screenplay called Infinity Care, and it's a really deeply personal story. If you'd want to share that with the audience to whatever degree, I'd just be curious to know how you balance that storytelling craft with that delicate subject matter.
So Infinity Care is the first script that I ever wrote. For this first film script I ever wrote, I'd had a couple of my plays performed. It was difficult for me. When I entered the MFA, I really had this original eye of adaptation, and that all of my script work was going to be adaptation. And because I'm a ghostwriter, it's like I stand behind other people's stories. And so telling my own story is really vulnerable because I've spent the last 15 years executing other people's stories. So my mentor, Agatha Dominic, who is an incredible screenwriter and mentor teacher in her own right, encouraged me from the jump to tackle this story. One of the, like, you walk into an MFA and you come in with 10 ideas for what are your first script going to be. And this was the only really personal one. And it's based on a dream. So I had a daughter who had severe disabilities. So if you remember, I said I had 4 kids to feed. I only have 3 kids to feed now. Hermione was born with severe disability. She had Emanuel syndrome, and she was in and out of the hospital. It was a lot. Medicalized children are so much more than people think they are. And shout out to Rare Disease Mama. She's over on Instagram, and I know her and follow her, and her kids. She's still in the thick of it, so I still see some of it. Those it's harder than you can even imagine. If you have never had a medical child who is on the edge of death for their entire life, it's a lot. It's brutal. So Hermione had seizures. She had like a cascade of developmental disabilities, used sign language. She never walked, she never talked. And then she had seizures, and she'd have these grand mal seizures that came and went, but they would last for like 2 hours. And so you're watching your child have a 2-hour seizure that the doctors cannot stop. It was a lot. And so she passed away suddenly one day that's why I only have part of a PhD in clinical psych, is because she passed away during my first year. And after that, I couldn't go back. Grad school was too much at that point. So she passed away very suddenly from a seizure. And after she passed, 3.5, I had a recurring dream about her and about going to visit her in this kind of mausoleum / hospital. And I had this dream for many years because she passed away in 2015, and I wrote Infinity Care in 2022. So I had this recurring dream, and I had written kind of a short story about it that was just very private, like it was just on my Google Docs. And then I put that on my list. Agatha encouraged me to develop it into a screenplay. And so I did, which sounds like straightforward, and crafting a narrative like that is not. And like determining exactly how you get in and out, what pieces stay. It ended up needing context, so there are these flashbacks in it. And yeah, so I wrote that script and then entered it into screenplay contests, and it did really well. It won the grand prize at several screenplay competitions. We actually are in early development on it. So last year we raised funds, and I worked with an animator. It's animated. And we actually got backing from C22C, which is the Emanuel Syndrome organization, to make sure that it's done compassionately and everything, because for everything, I have not had a child with a disability in 11 years. So I want to make sure, because I don't live in that world, that I'm writing it authentically and portraying it authentically. And there's a little girl with Emanuel. She's not a little girl. She's older now. There's a little girl with Emanuel syndrome who actually voices her. And so right now we have 30 seconds to finished animation, which is still a significant amount of money to do that. And then the plan is to release it as an audiobook and potentially a novella, and then continue to push forward to get the film version made. Because the film version, even like a 17-minute animated film, at the caliber that we want to do it, you're talking about $125,000. And so that's significant money to raise. So we raised some to do the trailer. And then the novella and all that will we push along. But I will say with all that, it is a deeply personal, it's a difficult piece. I spent a lot of nights crying writing that piece with my son, my youngest son, like curled up asleep next to me, and I would type in it and work on it while working on other things. And right now, I just don't quite have the emotional bandwidth to push it further forward. So this summer, when the semester's over, is like the next push on that project. So it's like all about balance, right?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. That really means a lot, and I know that resonates. I want to shift gears to the business owners now who are out there listening, because a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, what have you, have been told that it's a great idea to have a story. It's a good idea to have a book. Comment on that, how important it is for someone to actually have a book in the business world.
So let me say, first of all, I don't think it's as important for the marketing for a person to have a book as it is for themselves. It gives you direction to have, and I feel like you can probably speak to this as well, Dave, to have taken your knowledge and codified it in that form, again, like editing out the junk, that helps you to have clarity and direction. So in leveling up your business, it's not so much about you're going to sell 1 million copies or it's going to turn into a film. It's that I understand my life, my message in this codified long form context. That's not a tweet. That's not like a LinkedIn post, right? And so you can make sense of it more. And my own book about ghostwriting, which is based on my own like experience teaching that course for many years, it's codified even the way that I understand my own process, like to write that 300-page book. So that's what it does for business owners. It is not about making money. It does show people, though, that you have your shit together. And so I think that that is an important thing. It means that you can stay with something for a long time. Same thing as a college degree. It's like, why would you go to college? Why do employers like students who have gone to college? Because if you go to college and complete a 4-year degree, it shows that you can stick with something for 4 years and finish something.
Right.
The same thing with a book. It's like, it shows that you can hang with it for 300 pages and finish something. So there's like a stability to it, which is, again, as much about you as it is about the people who you're marketing towards.
Yeah, really well said. I never thought of it as a marketing element when I was writing it. It was really, like I said, about getting a message out into the world for all three of mine. But the credibility piece that you alluded to is absolutely real. It's not something that you have to press on as an author. Just you mentioned that you've done it, and there's a lot of resonance that comes with it. To your point, just even from the standpoint of being resilient enough to complete projects, let alone the perceived expertise that comes with it. Which leads me to my next piece is for the folks out there who feel like they've got a story inside them but don't know where to start. What should they do?
If you've got a story and you don't know where to start, I really suggest you hire a book coach. I do it, but there's lots of people on the internet. Like, you can go and find folks. Believing that you're going to sit there and figure it out with ChatGPT, which is not a bad tool. I'm going to say it's not a bad tool. It is a sycophantic tool. It's going to tell you what you want to hear, no matter what little settings you put in ChatGPT. So but you need to sit down with a real person and work out what direction you even want to go. And I lay this out, it's in my book. Like, I lay out how to write a book. It's a ghostwriting book, but it's a really helpful tool for anybody who's trying to figure that out. But there are lots of books out there. Like, this is not gatekeeping knowledge. You need to go find somebody to talk to. You need to find a book that you can work through. But again, the book is secondary. Like, I just keep saying, you need to find like a coach. And you don't have to talk to them a lot. If you do like a single session with a coach, they can give you a direction if you want to write it yourself of like, here are some ideas. Here's where you can go. Here is a human understanding of what you're trying to say. So, yeah.
Yep. Before we wrap, tell the audience a little bit about your book. What will they find in it, and where can they get it?
So my book is called The Surrogate Author, the craft, business, and ethics of ghostwriting in the age of AI. And you can get it from Kindle Hunt. It is a textbook. It is a $75 textbook. I do want to always warn people that because it is through Kindle Hunt. So if you find this book, it is written for either college study or individual study. So if you're a professor and you want to teach a ghostwriting class, this is turnkey. It will tell you exactly how to go over a 15-week semester, exactly what to do. If you want to do it individually, there is instructions in the book for how to do it self-paced. And there are specific exercises that'll walk you through how to become a ghostwriter, or even if you are just wanting to write your own book, I walk through all of the process. For ghostwriters, there's stuff about contracts in there. There's stuff about how to negotiate. There's stuff about how to find people to work with. There's stuff about how to develop your own practice. And then there is a ton of stuff, a ton of like charts and things about how to structure your book, where to find your genre. Like, what are you writing, a self-help book? Are you writing a memoir? Like, what are you doing? And this book itself is really a hybrid self-help memoir book, really a hybrid how-to memoir book, because there's a lot of my own personal experience in there, just like we talked about.
Yeah,
So,
wish I had that kind of guide when I was thinking about doing my stuff. Before we wrap up here, Autumn, tell the audience a little bit about where they can find you if they want to learn more about you, how they can work with you.
so autumnkaren.com is me. I took on the Karen moniker like 6 months before it became a meme, and then was like, well, here we are.
Here we are.
We're just going to stick with it. So you can find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn. My inbox is always open. And I'm on socials. I'm on TikTok and Instagram at Autumn Carrying. So come find me.
Yep, do that, folks. Definitely check her out. Autumn, thank you so much for joining us today on Behind the Numbers. You shared a lot of really good stuff with us, and I know the audience really appreciated it.
I so appreciate you. Thank you so much, Dave.
It's been a pleasure. And thank you out there in the audience for listening to this program, Behind the Numbers with Dave Bookbinder. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment, leave us a review or a comment on Spotify or Apple. As I say all the time, that stuff really does move the needle. And your feedback also helps us to grow the audience and bring even more great content your way. Until next time, gang, I am Dave Bookbinder, reminding you that the numbers tell the story, but the people bring it to life. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time on Behind the Numbers.